If you're anything like me, then you'll probably be out of friends and family members who are willing to speak with you by the time this election is over. I'm of course referring to the presidential election, which seems to be the only thing that folks are talking about these days. Trump versus Clinton, bad against evil, blue and red, maybe with a bit of snark aimed squarely at third-party candidates like Dr. Jill Stein, the Green Party nominee and a Lexington, Mass. native, I might add. All that fire-breathing aside, the Bay State is a political hotbed in and of itself. Though many people are ignorant to what goes down on Beacon Hill, decisions that are made at the state level, not to mention at the city, town, and municipal levels, right in your backyards, impact your life in significant ways. After all, it wasn't the Supreme Court of the United States or a U.S. Senator that legalized gay marriage en masse. It was your rank-and-file lawmakers doing something positive for a change. At Beyond Boston, we hope to broaden the perspectives of viewers by exposing them to issues and ideas that are important to them, as well as to people in other communities, neighboring communities. This installment is no different. But of course, we've added some election spin. We'll be highlighting Brookline Interactive Group's interview with a presidential candidate from Mass who isn't Jill Stein, or Mitt Romney, John Kerry, or Michael Dukakis for that matter. We also have a segment from Watertown Cable Access Corp about the statewide ballot referendum on legal marijuana. To complement that piece about how communities are accommodating the cannabis movement, we'll also be speaking with Nicole Snow of the Massachusetts Patient Advocacy Alliance about ballot question 4, which will legalize and tax cannabinoid products, just like alcohol. With all that to chew on, please sit back, take a deep breath, and enjoy our first clip.
What are the advantages and disadvantages of marijuana legalization in Massachusetts? And what are some of the issues surrounding question 4 on this November's election ballot? That is the question that the Citizens Initiative Review Pilot Project deliberated on in a 4-day panel at the Atrium School in Watertown. The Massachusetts CIR pilot was organized by Watertown State Representative Jonathan Hecht, along with representatives from Tufts University and Healthy Democracy, who organized the first Citizens Initiative Review earlier this year.
The basic idea of it is to give voters the benefit of the work of a select group of voters who, in terms of their makeup, they reflect the voting population of the state as a whole. And they're here in Watertown for 4 days of really intense examination and discussion of question 4 on the legalization of marijuana.
These citizens come together and listen to advocates pro and against the ballot initiative. In this case, it's question 4, as well as some panels of independent experts that can answer their specific questions about the ballot initiative. At the end of those 4 days, they create something called a citizen statement that gets disseminated to as many voters as we can reach in the state of Massachusetts. On that citizen statement will be a list of key findings that they believe to be the most strong and reliable information about the ballot question.
The citizen statement is now available to view on cirmass.org. The voter panel concluded that question 4 provides significant control to city and town authorities by allowing safeguards on the operations of marijuana establishments. It protects businesses and landlord rights, and it prohibits marijuana consumption in public areas. Question 4's taxed and regulated system is modeled after the state's system for alcohol regulation. It replicates a system that is already working well in the state. The proposed system would be controlled, transparent, and accountable. Marijuana would only be available for purchase to people 21 and older, marketing to children would be prohibited, and a limited amount of marijuana could be grown in a private home but would not be able to be sold. The Citizens Initiative Review also wrote 2 statements in opposition and in support of marijuana legalization. According to the Executive Director of Marijuana Policy for Denver, after legalization, the black market continues to thrive and change. Although in development at this time, there is no definitive method for testing for impaired drivers, and there is conflicting evidence of an increase in teen use or motor vehicle accidents in states that have legalized recreational use. Legalized and regulated marijuana is safer than black market marijuana because the legalized product will be tested and clearly labeled according to state regulations. Question 4 will create a large number of regulatory, law enforcement, legal, and licensure jobs that are supported by taxes on the sale of marijuana. Question 4 would give patients and health providers ready access to marijuana without committing a crime. Legalization could help people avoid opiates, addiction, and worse problems.
Because it's a complicated question that involves a lot of different issues: public health, law enforcement, youth, local government, regulatory systems at the state level. So they felt it was one where voters would really benefit from the sort of in-depth deliberations and study that the Citizens Initiative Review Panel can put in.
My understanding is that it was quite a volatile issue. It's quite split in the state right now, polling-wise. There's a lot of uncertainty about what it really means, and that they felt like a citizens panel could really get to the bottom of some of those issues that they felt were not being addressed in the public debate so far.
Dan Hogan, Watertown Weekly News.
I remember when Nicole Snow was just getting started as an activist. She always had important things to say, but was sometimes too shy to say them. No more. As the executive director of the Massachusetts Patient Advocacy Alliance, she has become one of the most outspoken advocates for marijuana in New England. And while Nicole's voice has been heard on many of the largest radio and television stations of late, we brought our next guest here today to ask about some of the critical micro issues around cannabis in Mass that may get lost in more mainstream coverage. How's it going, Nicole?
Great. How are you, Chris?
All right. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So first, I introduced you as an advocate, a cannabis advocate, but I want to let you kind of define your role on your terms, and and also how does your advocacy differ from you advocating in particular for question 4, of course, legalization?
Well, thank you for asking. I have been a cannabis reform activist for several years in the state of Massachusetts, and I have libertarian values held deep within me, but for the most part, I have been a medical marijuana patient advocate. I, do see that sometimes the patients are quite marginalized and may be forgotten about when writing policy.
So, here we are, with the legalization vote looming. Mm-hmm. But can you just explain to people out there, how far have patients come since you started advocating? How, what's the timeline? And where are you today?
December 2014, I was asked to come on as deputy director by Matthew Allen, the founder and former president of the Massachusetts Patient Advocacy Alliance, to take over while he pursued another career. And at that point, we did not have any of the dispensaries that we had now open. And it was the end of the Patrick administration, where he issued a PCR to the first dispensary in Salem to begin growing. And after he left office, there was a transition period between the Patrick administration and the Baker administration. So far, we've seen the Baker administration take on a lot of the issues that were holding up the process, and now we can actually actively implement the program, and the Department of Public Health has been working with our group to focus on that implementation. So
it's much sturdier footing than it was, a year ago, 2 years ago in
Yeah.
particular. So I know I'm certainly curious. The reason I wanted you to come today is, everyone's talking about legalization, recreational in particular, whether it's Trump, trumping that up or trying to fight it. But where do patients stand in all this? I mean, after all, a lot of this was for patients in the first place. How do you see that as going forward? If the either way, if the question 4 passes or if it doesn't.
Our group, the Mass Patient Advocacy Alliance, did put on the ballot the Humanitarian Care Act of 2012. We represent the patients in implementation of all of this. So during this campaign, we are neutral. So we are 100% focused on supporting the patients of Massachusetts and implementing the current program as it stands, and pushing forward to change regulations that would help them in their everyday lives. The question 4 ballot initiative, I was a drafter, and I was allowed to put input that would help protect patients, but we decided to take a neutral stance politically so that we can forge forward in implementation.
So when patients come to you and say, not should I vote for it, but like what would happen to them? If it's an access issue, wouldn't legalization, would that mean more access automatically and that's good for patients? Or there are some kind of intricacies here that you're speaking with patients about?
There are some intricacies when it comes to the ballot initiative in November, but broader access would mean access to some patients, and other patients it could mean dilution of the the medicine that they rely upon. The program hasn't gotten to the point where medicine is consistent and available 100%. So we're still like in a, we're still in flux, I would say, but I think that voting in November is a personal choice. And of course we believe in the separation from federal government and creating state laws to circumvent those federal laws that might be keeping access away from patients.
How much work have you done like in cities and towns, small cities and towns especially, about getting dispensaries? How important of an issue is that? Because I don't hear too much about that.
A lot, and I've begun to lose count. I've begun to lose count of how many cities and towns we've gone to visit, but we've been visiting cities and towns on varying capacities, whether it is to support a facility opening in a locale or supporting the patients and their constituents in, or the public officials in bringing, more knowledge around the medical marijuana program to that city and town.
And do you feel, are there some politicians who they don't even really want to talk about it? Well, let's wait till legalization or whatever, even though you have all these other issues that you're trying to bring them. And what's your message to them? What are you telling them? I know whether it's through lobbying or just messaging on social media in general. It
can get a little discouraging and aggravating because a lot of times medical marijuana is not seen as a medical application. It can be looked at as a vice for patients looking to merely get high. But we represent the most vulnerable and sick of the patient population, so it can be a challenge to bring forward those patients that we do represent. However, we do try our best.
So where can people, I know there's just always so many questions, particularly even people who have perhaps needed medicinal cannabis for a long time. Where can they come for answers? I know that your organization is one of the hubs where people come, and there's a really significant learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
I'm someone who's been editing articles about cannabis for years, and still, I just have a million questions. So where can people come? What are some good resources, including yourself?
You can look us up on compassionforpatients.com, sign up for our email list. We try to put as much information as possible out there so that people can learn more about medical marijuana and its access. You can call us directly or email us directly. We're working 24 hours a day now, and the feedback has been absolutely astonishing from the patients.
That's great. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming out.
All right, I'll also take this time to remind voters en masse that there are 3 other ballot questions as well. Question 1 regarding the expansion of slot parlor gambling. Question 2 regarding the expansion of charter schools. And question 3 regarding methods of animal containment. We encourage you to study up on all of the above. As for your options at the national level, check out this Brookline Interactive Group interview with BU economics professor and independent presidential candidate Lawrence Kotlikoff.
We want Washington to be helping with the recovery.
If you believe that every man, woman,
I'm Lawrence Kotlikoff. I'm a professor of economics at Boston University, and I'm running for president.
So in 2012, though, you did run, right, as a write-in?
Yeah.
So how does it differ this time from last?
Well, so this time I'm using a different strategy. This time I'm running as a write-in candidate. I'm not running as part of a party whatsoever, and I'm working based on social media and regular media, and I'm depending on people like you, your generation, to realize that I'm actually their candidate and to spread the word to everybody around the country through social media.
So you said you're running for the independent party.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not running as. I'm not running for any party. I think the parties are the problem. I think if I were elected president, we would see the end of parties. We would see the internet having transformed our politics to the point that people would understand that we don't need parties anymore to tell us who to vote for. We don't need that monopoly on political power anymore.
Out of the 90 write-in candidates that are listed as running for president, you are the only actual one that we can vote for?
Well, you can write in people's names, but unless they are registered write-in candidates in the many different states that do require registration, and that registration process is very difficult and time-consuming and expensive, your vote will not be counted. So I'm the only person that's in a position to actually win the presidency on a legal basis, to have his votes counted or her votes counted and actually get enough votes to win the presidency. So as far as I see it, there's only 3 people in the race. There's myself, there's Clinton, and Trump. So many people think that Donald Trump is a great danger to our country. I think he's a great danger to our country. I also think that Hillary Clinton is a great danger to our country. I view him as a know-nothing candidate because he does not have the knowledge base to know what to do, and he's also got all these other issues, like, you know, he doesn't seem to know what he thinks until he asks himself that morning, and then he changes his mind, and he also is spouting off this racism and sexism and the whole list of isms. And then you've got Hillary Clinton, who I view as the do-nothing candidate, because she just wants to maintain policy pretty much the way it is. But policy pretty much the way it is on a path of disaster. I'm saying you don't actually need money to become president of the United States. You can be a registered write-in candidate and you can win the election, and all you need is to have people go to your website, kotlikoff2016.com, volunteer, donate if they want to, but it's not critical to donate. But the critical thing is to spread the word. To spread the word that we actually have a choice, that we're not locked into these parties. We're not forced to take the 2 people that people don't want.
So do you think that you can get the American public's vote?
I think that I can, yeah, I think I can win the election, and I think I think I can win the election. I think that young people around the country are going to be the instrument for that to happen. They're going to spread the word, and that this campaign is going to go viral, and that we're going to have major people endorse my candidacy, and that the entire Republican party that is very upset and is leaving Trump in droves and has nobody else to go to is going to first flip and support me, but then I'm going to get Democrats to come over as well, and I think I'm going to beat both Clinton and Trump.
Was it Voltaire, Gilda Radner, or Tupac who said, "I don't agree with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it"? None of the above, actually. Long story there. But whoever said it, it's important in these times of political closed-mindedness and short-sightedness to remember that we're free to vote for whomever we want and for whatever we want. And on that note, here's Binge Network Director Jason Pramis with some cannon fodder to defend yourself against any friends, aunts, or uncles who may have been bullying you into voting for some corporate politician or another. Hopefully, you'll all return to speaking terms when this election is over. As for my own friends and family, I guess we'll have to see how it goes.
With Election Day swift upon us, major party supporters are trying to police the growing margins of their parties and guilt-trip minor party stalwarts into voting against their consciences. Sadly, this behavior has become a ritual of American politics, one that needs to end if we're ever going to have a system that offers voters more choices than column A or column B. Or, as comedian Barry Crimmins once put it, do you want to get hit over the head with a hammer or a mallet? In the last couple of months, I've read or heard dozens of impassioned pleas from people in my social network begging anyone who will listen to not be stupid and throw their votes away by backing the Green Party, the Libertarian Party, or any party other than the Democrats or Republicans on November 8th. When begging fails, they start the insults, which soon devolves into shouting matches online or in person, convincing no one who wasn't already convinced but solidifying their belief that they're the only ones possessing the relevant facts and the maturity to take rational action. That their political equation is the only political equation. That their choice is the only sane one. But that's incorrect. People can share some of the major parties' views and still vote for minor party candidates because they prefer to vote for the candidates that come closest to their political beliefs or to simply lodge a protest vote, which they have every right to do. So just a reminder to all major party supporters, people in minor political parties are not in your political parties. They are Greens, they are Libertarians, etc. And while minor parties certainly have to figure out their relationship to major parties as part of their political strategy, they are not required to do what you want them to do. They are also not idiots for hewing to their own political course or for failing to fall into line behind the current duopoly. Even though so-called third parties haven't had a chance at winning major national elections for a long, long time, and even though we don't have a parliamentary system in the US, that doesn't mean their efforts are wasted or that their supporters' votes are thrown away. Small parties run national elections for any number of reasons, but two big ones are to qualify for federal election funding and to earn a slot in the presidential debates. Others include support for lower-level candidates and gaining visibility for their ideas. Whatever the reason, they are not stealing votes from anybody. They are vying for constituencies like any other party and trying to win them over and gain their support. That's politics, folks. It's real life. The more power that's at stake, the uglier it gets. Given the degeneration of the Democrats and the Republicans into caricatures of their past politics, it should be no surprise at all that more and more people are looking for political alternatives. I certainly am. For Beyond Boston, I'm Jason Pramis.
Hey, this is Chris Frome from the Boston Institute for Nonprofit Journalism, or BINJ. We help start Beyond Boston as a way to strengthen community journalism through collaboration. And this show is just one of several media projects we're bolstering. Check us out at bingeonline.org. And while you're there, become a reporter supporter and help grassroots nonprofit media for as little as $3 a month. Members get invited first to BINJ events, as well as access to our throwback posts that connect headlines from the past with contemporary news. Remember, when you support nonprofit journalism, you support all your favorite causes at the same time.